All right, moving guys from new media to old media. No, I'm going to Paramount and Warner Brothers Discovery. I wanted to give people a bit of an update here on a story. Obviously, we were talking a lot about a week ago when we first learned of the plan at Paramount to make an offer to buy all of Warner Brothers Discovery. Earlier this week, I'd indicated that while some had believed, and I'd even been led to believe as well, perhaps a said offer would be forthcoming in the near term. It could be a bit longer than the market had anticipated. Warner Brothers stock actually did go down during the course of this week, in part on that. So let me give you a bit of an update as we sort of try and get a sense for the timeline. I mean, best I can tell at this point, if you are Paramount, you certainly would love to try to negotiate something with Warner Brothers Discovery. You would do it quietly, wouldn't you? See if you can actually reach a deal instead of making what would be an unsolicited offer. Very much unclear whether they're going to be able to do that. And so we are sort of left wondering and waiting for when, in fact, said offer will be made and then perhaps made public, in part to let investors know, put pressure on the company to some extent, although, as I've indicated previously, there are no true pressure points in the sense of the split of the company doesn't require a vote. There's no annual meeting coming, but obviously you can create pressure through public shareholders and those who would want a deal if that deal comes at a price that they feel is appropriate. So we're going to still wait for that. What would that number look like? This is more the realm of speculation at this point, but from what I hear, you could expect perhaps something in the 22 to 24 range, somewhere between 20 and 30% of that consideration in stock, in Paramount stock. And it is notable that Paramount Skydance stock has held up extraordinarily well through this period when we first heard about the possibility of an offer. It has performed very well. And in fact, some would argue, well, now they're kind of linked almost. Now, there's a very small float at Paramount Skydance. Remember, 70% of it is owned and controlled by Larry Ellison, Fred Bird, his private equity partner, David Ellison, those entities associated with the Ellison family. But it has held up well. And under any deal scenario, let's say it was 70% cash, maybe even 80% cash, it would be Larry Ellison, is my understanding, providing much of that cash in the form of a payment to Paramount for which he would get stock, so that would be potentially dilutive. Of course, his net worth, as we pointed out many times, just, what was it, last week, went up a multiple of what they could pay for all of, in one day, for all of
pure joy to have on,
Warner Brothers Discovery.
Pure joy to have on, because on the call,
yeah,
he's so expansive, he's so upbeat. I love his constructive. But David, is this possible? I'm going to throw a bomb at you.
Let me hear it.
We all keep saying, well, Disney can't be Netflix, Comcast can't be Netflix, well, because they have too much baggage and carriage. Could this be any chance that they be modeling this off of Netflix?
Well, I think that would be the hope, in the sense of you would have a movie studio that might produce as many as 30 movies a year. You would have what they would argue would be the number 2 streamer after Netflix, right? Jumping ahead perhaps of Disney. At least that, again, would be their hope when you combine HBO Max and Paramount Plus. And of course, people also, they ask me, now, what would happen to the cable networks? What about that part, the bad part of the company, so to speak? And my understanding is, as is the plan now, to split Warner Brothers Discovery. At some point, you could see a split off.
Right.
Now, you also would bring together, to a certain extent, CBS and CNN. You'd create a lot of cost savings there in bringing the news organizations together. That obviously also has other implications, the likes of which we've discussed earlier in the show. And Larry Ellison, obviously, close to the president. It's funny because, on that front as well, antitrust doesn't come up at all. And there was a time, guys, where you could imagine bringing together 2 studios which would control at least 40% of the overall box office, if not more, would have been conceivably an antitrust issue. Now, for perhaps fundamental reasons involving the fact that, well, is there really even a market and people going to see movies as opposed to streaming? Can you really separate it out? It may not be thought of. And then there is, of course, the belief that this would be looked on favorably by the current administration.
You layer on TikTok.
For all the reasons we
think.
think.
Imagine if they have some sort of early read
I don't
TikTok.
believe, and obviously we're waiting for a readout from the Trump Xi call right now. My understanding is that, yes, Oracle would be an investor. As I reported previously, they would continue to use the Oracle cloud infrastructure, but not that TikTok would somehow become a part of
but you don't really need it
the Ellison media empire.
You raised a great point. Why isn't it down? And I'm thinking that people think
People think maybe they've got the cards to really make this into a true Silicon Valley-esque media company.
Then I buy it. Particularly if they can offload what we don't like.
Now, speaking of, I mean, Netflix, by the way, is the one name that's still out there. Is would they ever consider trying to make a bid here for the entire thing? Clearly, there's a belief on the part of Warner Brothers and its board that once the split occurs next year, there might be interest in the studio streaming business from the likes of a Netflix or even an Amazon or maybe even an Apple. But very much unclear whether Netflix would want to make any move. It would really hurt their stock price, you'd imagine. Buying a company now with a huge cable presence.